Good afternoon, Agnieszka Holland, and welcome to Brussels.
Good afternoon.
I'm so delighted that you are here and that you received yesterday the honorary title of Difference Day, because today is World Press Freedom Day, and those days are still very necessary, that we have to not only celebrate the freedom of press, but we have to remind ourselves that around the world this freedom is under threat, and not everyone can express his views the way he or she wants. So that's why I think that it's such an honor to be talking to you. And I knew you flew in from Prague yesterday, and Prague is where you're now working on a new movie, but it's a special place for you as well, because your career, if I can say so, started there. Could you take us back to Prague of your youth, if I can say so, and could you tell us why and when you decided to become a filmmaker?
I decided to become the filmmaker when I was 15, and that it was like very conscient deliberation in my mind, because I asked myself what expresses me really fully. And I said that I need the visual expression. I wanted to be a painter as a child, that I need to tell the stories because it's what I was doing since my childhood as well. And the third thing, that I want to have the power. It means to tell to people what they have to do. So all that together made me film director, and because it was in mid-60s and the cinema have been probably the most innovative and the most exciting art, I decided that that is exactly something I would like to do. And I didn't went to Polish film school to Lodz for many reasons. One, it was personal, political reason. My father was the victim to the communist provocation and to the communist government in Poland, and he died, and his name became somehow the name which was officially very badly seen. So it didn't look that I could make it to the film school, which was closely watched by the authorities. And also they didn't allow the young people after the baccalaureate to go there. You needed to study something before, and I was very impatient to become a filmmaker, didn't want to wait. And but also it was another thing, that it was the time of the Czech film wave, new wave, and it was exciting cinema. I think one of the most exciting, and till now, some of the films of that period reminds my favorite films and the source of the inspiration. So I wanted to be there, and another reason was that it was the city of Franz Kafka, who was, for me, very important. From the practically same age, I decided to be a filmmaker. So I went to Prague, and since Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia and Prague are the places where I feel not only home, but somehow I feel that it's my foundation. On many reasons, it was the founding years for me.
Yes. And so the way you describe these early years sounds like everything is so full of energy and positive, but it were very difficult times. And for Poland and for Czechoslovakia, there were communism. There was, it wasn't easy to, to have, we can't say that there was free speech, there was censorship at that time. And also you were involved in the Prague Spring in 1968. And you were also imprisoned?
Yes, actually I've been imprisoned because I collaborated, me and some Czechs and Slovaks, with the young Polish opposition, and we helped them to smuggle some non-censored bulletins and books. And they passed from Paris through Czechoslovakia, and we've been helping them. And after they've been arrested, and it was a big trial, one of the big trials after '68. And I also found myself as an accused person and was imprisoned for some time and after sentenced. in Prague, when the Prague Spring started to fade.
Yes.
The Prague Spring, it was practically a few months before the Soviet intervention, and after it was still another year when we can hope that maybe the democratization on some level will remain after. And after it changed to something which was called normalization, which is a very Orwellian term, because it meant practically that the freedom was taken from the people and that the people resigned. They accepted that they want to have quiet life instead of having freedom. And that kind of the mechanism, you know, to challenge your freedom for some kind of the safety, it was what I could observe many times in different periods.
And we could, I think, say that you make your life work out of it, because you are a voice of freedom, and I wonder whether those early years and what happened in Poland and in Czechoslovakia and your imprisonment, has that shaped you then, that you will be that voice for all your future films?
Yeah, I think certainly it shaped me. It was a great experience, and it shaped it somehow. It opened my eyes to the certain mechanism which I can follow since and understand since. But I think that my feel for the justice and the freedom of speech and expression, it was something which started before. It probably started through the education by my mother since my childhood, and I was sensitive to that even before I came to Prague. So cannot say that only that personal political experience was something which changed me. I think that it adds another layer to something which I had already.
Now, there is a discussion that I often have with colleague writers or artists, and the question that I always ask them is, do they think that there is a task that lies on the shoulders of an artist? And there are artists that say, no, we just have to create beautiful things or just write beautiful books, and we don't need to, you know, to improve the world in any way. But when I look and I watch your movies, then I just feel that, of course, there is beauty in the movies and craftsmanship, but at the same time, it's not just entertainment. There is always a deeper message in the movies. Is that important to you? And how do you see the task of an artist?
So if the cinema is not also describing the world and the reality, something is missing. And I know that most of the cinema, it is a pure entertainment, but even the pure entertainment somehow can describe the world in deeper way or to anticipate the future. When we are speaking, you know, for last years we are speaking so much about the climate catastrophe, and it was the entertainment, you know, big Hollywood movies which touched that imaginary and that issue first. So I think that the cinema has the power to. And this doesn't matter if it's, you know, if it's highly artistic, quite exclusive cinema, or if it is very popular cinema. It has the power to see something further than only our reality right now. So anyway, not duties, not also taboos. I think that the art has to have the freedom to break the taboos as well. That the artist cannot be afraid of practically anything. If he or she is afraid, it means the art is not fully free.
When you say that an artist shouldn't be afraid, I fully agree, but you have to have courage for that. I'm not sure if everyone is as courageous as you are.
Well, it is also the question of the community, you know, it's the responsibility also of the politicians the politicians in democratic countries have the duty to create the free space for the artists. It's not the duty to the artists to fight, you know, to fight for their freedom. They have to, especially in the, you know, in the normal democracies, they have to, it has to be granted somehow.
Yes.
And of course, if it's not, if you have some kind of the authoritarian or ideologically restrictive regimes, after the artists have the choice, you know, to be safe or to be free.
You come from Poland, and Poland has been an illiberal democracy for many years. Now we are making again a turn to the liberal side, but it's still, we are still not there yet. So to make the movies you have made and have been making, courage is still needed. And I think the movies that we will be discussing, and I want to point to movies, and this is Mr. Jones and Green Border, your recent one, because there is a lot of there that touches the political scene. How do you feel about the fact that as a filmmaker, you very often end up in political questions, or my questions will be touching politics. Is that something that...
Yeah, but you know, it depends for what reason they are not touching those questions. Because one reason can be exactly what we've been talking about. It means that that is not their area of sensibility, that they are not like responsive to that they have another way to see the world and express the world. And the second reason can be just a fear. Yes, or conformism, or opportunism. It means to be afraid to take the risk or to touch some controversial issues because you can pay for that. And certainly you can pay for that. Even in liberal democracy, you can pay for that.
Yes.
The price is different, of course, like in authoritarian semi-democracy or totalitarian country, especially. But what, you know, what is the reason to make that very, you know, special profession if you don't have the elementary courage to defend what you believe in? After, you know, it's why to spend so much of money and time on the stories which are half lies. I just don't see it. It means, and you know, of course it's different if you can end in the concentration camp or gulag, you know, for your courage. But if you have just some troubles, that is not a good excuse.
I wish everyone would answer like that to those questions. Now, for your movie, Mr. Jones, it's about the first Western journalist to report on the Holodomor, and that's the man-made famine, perhaps even genocide, in Ukraine in the early 30s. And so I imagine when making this movie, you delved very deep into the Ukrainian past and history. And I was wondering, how do you look now to the war on the European continent and Putin's massive invasion to
Well, you know,
Ukraine?
we made that film partly because we've been afraid that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It means that I feel for quite a long time, for certain years, that you know that the atmosphere of 30s of 20th century is coming back. That is something quite similar, and that we are. And the freedom of the press and the objectivity of the media is in challenge, and that the people resign to some kind of lies and semi-lies, and also they are responding to the tragedies or, you know, the terrible things which are going on in the world with some kind of the, you know, passive, cowardish. They don't care about it. That they rather close eyes and ears, and they turn their heads from the challenges and dangers which are outside of their small world.
Yes.
And the politicians are cowardish, like in 30s. In our times, they are looking on the opinion polls every month or week, and they are changing their policy depending on the changing in the opinion polls. And the medias, in the best, they are following the polarized agenda. It means they are not caring so much about the facts, like about the interpretations or opinions. And that is very dangerous when the media become corrupted by money or by some political belief. If the societies, if the public opinion is indifferent, and if the politicians are cowardish, anything can happen. And I'm afraid we are in the situation like that. And we made Mr. Jones after 2014. It means the war already started in Ukraine.
Yes.
We just didn't want to see where it can go with somebody like Vladimir Putin. Even if he said it openly, like Hitler wrote in the Mein Kampf, in what he will supposed to do, what he plans to do. Putin says in 2004 and especially in 2008 in Munich, I guess, what he will do. So the fact that we didn't react to that and didn't know that and didn't anticipate that and didn't prepare ourselves to defend the values and to defend the country which was in threat, under the threat, shows how exactly stupid we are or lazy we are. So that film somehow, it was somehow, those two films you quoted are some kind of the alarm cry, you know,
yeah,
that
there is a
shout
connection.
of alarm that, listen guys, and one was historical, it means eventually you can say, okay, it's the past. But Green Border is not historical, it's going on right now and in front of our eyes.
Yes, I see the connection between the two movies, and Green Border is about the truth and the lies, the propaganda, and also the cowardness of us, or turning our heads and eyes away from a crisis that is happening in front of us, just near us. And of course, in Belgium, I think most people are aware of the humanitarian crisis in the Mediterranean Sea, and that it's a huge graveyard. Many are not aware of the Green Border. And I hope with your movie that many will see what a tragedy, humanitarian tragedy is happening even now, even today. Could you please explain to the Belgian audience very briefly why you've made that film and why it's so important that people see what is happening, what is unfolding there?
Well, the migration crisis started to be very visible since 2014-15, the Syrian war. And it was pretty clear that the dictators like Putin will use the fear of Europe, the fear of the stranger, the fear of the invasion of migrants, to manipulate with the public opinion and to support the populist politicians and nationalistic politicians and to destroy European Union or to destabilize European Union. And they, to help that, they created the new corridor through Belarus till Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and the refugees and migrants who discovered that that corridor is safer than the Mediterranean, which, as you said, became the graveyard. They started to come here and pass illegally the borders, believing that they will easily enter the paradise. But the response of the Polish government have been very brutal, and with the pushbacks and the conditions also on that border are very difficult because huge forests. And they've been not mostly that people came from the south. They've been not prepared to the conditions, and many of them vanished or died. And those who didn't went through the terrible suffering and dehumanization. They've been pushed back and forth by Polish and Belarusian border guards, and I think that was one of the worst experience, even of those who've been escaping the wars or famine. Because it started on my soil, it started very close to the place I've been born and I'm living the part of the time. I thought that it's my duty to express it, to show it, and to give the voice to those who are voiceless, to the refugees, but also to the activists who organized very quickly to help them and been under the pressure from the authoritarian government as well. And also to border guards who've been like nicely, you know, and respected functionary of the democratic state, and suddenly they became some kind of the, well, cruel, sadistic, you know, I don't want to use the expression which will be eventually after used by Polish propaganda, but they've been deprived of their legal and human duties. They had instead to serve the cause, which they've been not prepared to. And yes. I wanted also to show what it means for them. So I tried to show that story from the different points of view, and in the quite epical dimension, to show what choices we have and what kind of situation we are facing when we forget the essential, and the essential to me is a human being and his rights.
Yes, and by making this movie, you showed some grim pages of Polish recent history and what is happening now. And I am sure you expected that, you know, the right-wing government will not be happy with that movie. Could you have anticipated, or have you knew that the reaction would be that brutal?
I knew that they will be furious that we finally made the film, because I think that everybody among the people of power believes that it will not gonna happen. And they also wanted to use that film and the hate campaign against me as an important tool of electoral propaganda. But they overdid it, they exaggerated, and when the film premiered in Venice Film Festival and received great reviews, and after got the special jury prize, the attacks started, and they came from the highest authorities. I didn't expect that. Yeah. I thought that they will use their you know, propaganda dogs, and that it will be mostly that kind of the attacks. But it was the Prime Minister, the Minister of Justice, Minister of Interior, President of the country, and the ruler of the main party.
You were on every front page of the news at a certain point.
It was like orchestrated hate campaign, which went beyond those I knew from the communist time. So I never experienced something so massive and so brutal, and it's why I say that they exaggerated, because the people actually started to massively go to the theaters to see the film.
As a civic duty.
It helped us, yes. And it became some kind of the protest action also, you know, to prove to that politician that, you know, that it's not normal to use that kind of weapons against the Polish filmmaker. And I think that a lot of people have been very touched by the film and very moved, and it opened the eyes to some dimension of that story which the people easily oversee. Yeah. So by the end it was great experience, you know. By the end it was I can say huge success, especially that the elections have been won by not by those authoritarian nationalists, but by the liberal parties.
And do you feel safe now in Poland?
Me?
Yes.
I think so, yes. It means you never know, you can always meet some crazy person. But in general, when I'm walking the streets in Poland, if the people stop me just to express their sympathy, and very rarely I have the other reaction. But in that moment, the heated moment, when that propaganda was on the top, and I received several threats on the internet, in social medias, I had to take the security guards to protect me, because it was like too heated. You never know if somebody will not decide to translate the hateful words to some action. It happened before, it can happen anyway.
Yes, and over the last decades, since you started movie making till today, do you feel there is an evolution for the worst, that expressing yourselves become more and more difficult, or?
I think so. First, it is because we are more lazy and more like spoiled.
You will
we the filmmakers, yes.
Filmmakers.
Mm-hmm. Filmmakers, I'm not speaking about the journalists. Journalists are facing so many crises. The journalism is in very, you know, like difficult point, I think. So I have the great admiration for those journalists and medias who try really to be faithful to the facts, and not to you know, to succumb to some kind of the expectations of the, of the political parties or of the general public or of the bubble which they are serving and so on. And also, the crisis of the written media, so the money for the quality medias are very difficult to get, and the same is with the cinema. The money for the difficult and controversial films are difficult to have. So it's less and less of them, but I hope it will change with the new generation. I think that the new generation is especially sensitive to some issues which been not so important for my or younger generation, younger than mine. It means the people who are in 40s, 50s now.
And we started in Prague, and I want to end with Prague because you will fly back today to Prague to work on the movie that you're now working on, and it's on Franz Kafka. Could you share a little bit?
Well, it's difficult to speak about the movie when we are in the middle of the shoot, and especially that film, which as a concept supposed to be slightly experimental. It means we are looking for some images, mysteries, for some obvious facts, and trying to put it together in non-linear way and pretty fragmentary way. So what the movie will be like, we'll see only after I will leave the editing room. I hope that it will be exciting. I hope that it will be, and that it will touch something really special, which somehow have been, I don't know, maybe that tragical vision of tortured men on one hand, and somebody who described the totalitarian, who predicted totalitarian regimes, or like in Prague, the brand which becomes the very popular tourist gadgets. All that is only part of the truth. So we are searching for something under that.
Well, we will see in a couple of months.
1 year probably.
1 year. Well, it's worth to be patient for your movies, and I want to congratulate you with your honorary title for Difference Day. I think you deserved it for all the movies that you have made, and especially for Green Border to be such a courageous filmmaker. And I just am beyond happy that you came to Brussels to receive it. And I want to thank you for your courage for your movies. And I hope many movies will come.
Thank you.